I think I definitely would have had a different experience with this film if I could see. Even with great audio description. So, strap in, because this is my review. I'm John Stark from AmericanMovieGuy.com, and this is my review of Women Talking. I am a blind film critic, and I watch films that have audio description. This movie does have audio description. It's currently a VOD. You can rent it. I rented it from iTunes. It has audio description that's done by Deluxe. That's done by the lovely Laura Post, who does really great work and works like nonstop. It's amazing. I hope she's earned enough money to buy herself a big house. But just in the last year, I feel like she's narrated like 10% of the things that I've watched. Probably more so than any other narrator. This is an Oscar-nominated Best Picture. It's one of the 10. It brings me to 9 of 10, and they're not going to put Avatar on Disney Plus before the Oscars. So I'm not going to get to 10 of 10 this year. Last year I did get to 10 of 10. I'm not going to go to theaters to watch Avatar. I'm just not. It's a visual effect-driven movie. It's 3 hours and it's like over 3.5 hours long. It's not going to happen. So 9 out of 10 is the best I'm going to get this year. I didn't even love the first one that much to be like, oh my God, sequel. I liked it, but anyway, so Women Talking it made me realize just this year how depressingly we told women to fuck off. Because this is a good film. And so was She Said, and so was Till, and so was The Woman King. Ironically, none of them are in my top 10, and I'm about to make a case for them. But it's weird that Women Talking is the only one of the 4 that has any Oscar nominations, and it only has 2. It has picture and adapted screenplay. The thing about these films is that they're all films that are written by women, directed by women, and starring strong women. Like, stories revolve around women who are either controlling their own narrative, like the women of Women Talking. They're taking back their narrative, like the women of She Said. They are, taking control and making real history, like the historical center of Till, or they are fighting for their place in the world, like in The Woman King. But they're all female-driven stories from female creators, and we just said fuck that. And we nominated a shit ton of women, but we nominated them all from male-directed films. Instead of She Said, we decided that we'd rather nominate Ana de Armas for being raped multiple times in Blonde. Instead of nominating The Woman King, we went with the much safer Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which oddly enough is The Woman King highlights the real story of what the Dora Milaje and Black Panther Wakanda Forever are based on. Instead of Till, a movie about a mother who is, trying to make an impact because of the death of her son, because mothers matter. She lost out on a Best Actress spot to Michelle Williams, who ran in the lead category because mothers matter. So a real life portrayal lost out to a fictional, one instead. So it has not been a great year for female filmmakers. It was a great year for Charlotte Wells, who directed a male to a Best Actor nomination. But the women, if we're looking at the women who are most likely to win this year, they were all in films written and directed by men. Whether it be Tar, whether it be Everything Everywhere All at Once, whether it be Black Panther Wakanda Forever, whether it be The Banshees of Inisherin, depending on who you think is going to win, actress or supporting actress, they're there because of men controlling their stories and narratives. So let's get that out of the way before I start talking about women talking as a man, by the way. This story is about women who live in a sort of ambiguous religious cult colony. It doesn't really go very specific into the where or the why or the how or anything about this. This is not meant to be like a specific depiction, I think, of any one. I don't think this is based on a true story or anything like that. It is adapted from a novel. But I think this maybe is just generally representational, perhaps, of how women in these situations exist and are treated. And the film begins sort of with the fact that they have women who have been sexually assaulted, and their attackers have, were caught, and some of them were attacked back, and some of them were taken off to jail, and the men of this village, of this religious village, have left to go bail out the rapists, and the women have been told that they have until they get back to decide to forgive them or leave. So they're given that option, and so this is the women. A grouping of the women are sort of chosen to make this decision on behalf of the group, and they have a discussion basically about whether or not they should leave, whether or not they should forgive and go back to the way things were, or whether or not they should stay and fight for their place in this village. They're very religious, so they believe that if they leave, that they will be denied entry into the kingdom of heaven. So it's very grounded in that. So there's a lot of talk about faith. It explores a lot of really interesting and difficult subject matter, which is what I loved about the film. I love that Sarah Polley's script is willing to go there in a very groundbreaking sort of way, by letting women control the narrative. Ben Whishaw is in this. He's basically there because the women in this religion are not allowed to read or write. Because much like why white people didn't let slaves read or write, if they could, we'd have a problem. So it's an immediate indicator to me that something societally is wrong when you allow one faction to be illiterate and not read or write. God did not say women can't read or write. That's men who are saying that, because if they could read or write and they read the Bible, they might have a slightly different viewpoint on life. But they need the men to be able to tell them and interpret. That's why they need the men. So yeah, this has a bunch of different personalities being thrown into the room. Shockingly, this film, as a lot of people talked about, it didn't get any acting nominations. This is like an actor's film. This showed up everywhere where you could nominate ensemble, but you couldn't nominate actors. Women Talking is probably the best reason why we need an ensemble award. And I'm kind of a little, I look at like the Ensemble for Everything Everywhere All at Once that wins SAG. And I get that it's SAG's way of saying this is our best picture, because they don't really have a best picture category, but Women Talking really deserve that. There's a reason. It's because the ensemble is so fluid together that you cannot actually just pick out one performance. It's really hard to do that. I was trying desperately because I want to have somebody from this film represented in my list, but it is nearly impossible because the way the conversations are so balanced between such a large ensemble of women, not even just the ones like you've heard, Rooney Mara and Claire Foy, Jessie Buckley, Frances McDormand. There are other names in here that are less familiar, that are less famous, that are really good. Actually, Sheila McCarthy in this is fantastic as Greta. I picked her up a couple of times, and she has some really good, sort of like longish moments of dialogue, and her character is featured quite prominently throughout the film, and I really enjoyed her performance. Rooney is giving a pretty standard Rooney Mara angry performance, if I'm being honest. She has this weird budding relationship with Ben Wishaw's character, but she won't go there. Like she is a woman scorned. I believe she was one of the women that was attacked / raped in whatever happened. We don't really get to see the full attack. There's hints of it at the beginning. There's sort of glimpses. This film is not just in a barn. A lot of people have written this film off as being the film from the barn. That's not true. They meet in a barn to talk about it, but there's plenty of scenes in this film that do not take place in a barn. They take place in the village. There's scenes of like the kids running around. Maybe they go inside of a house. There's one time where you can tell there are some horses and a buggy or something because she's telling the story about horses and a buggy. They're sitting on a roof one time. I mean, there's just so many. It's not just in a barn. This is not Mass. So I think possibly the film would have been more interesting if it was women in a barn. I think that's maybe one of my few little bit of concerns is that the film actually tries to expand, which is actually, I said the same thing about Mass. I said the strongest part about Mass was the conversation that happened in the room. The problem with Mass and the script and the film, and why I was slightly hesitant, even though I think I ranked it like third last year in my top 10 list. I had a little bit of a problem with the lead up and the lead out. For some reason, it felt like we needed more than what was in that room. But what was in that room was so powerful. It was so good that the writer-director should have been able to feel that and should have been able to understand and say, this is what I have and it's good enough. This is fucking amazing. Because I think when you do the extra stuff, it waters it down. It pulls it away. And it pulls away from the conversations. I didn't need to know more about the village. There's a little bit of a narration at the beginning, and a little bit of a that explains a little bit of the attack. And you see there's like one of the women that attacks one of the men. There's a woman that wakes up she's got like blood between her legs. Stuff like that. Contextually, I think maybe that would have been the only thing that I would have done. But there's a lot more. A lot of people like standing outside their houses, little kids playing. I would have found a way for everything to happen in the barn, because honestly, every time they left the barn, it wasn't nearly as interesting as the conversations that were being had in the barn. It's almost like Sarah Polley thought we needed a break from the conversations happening in the barn, from the tough conversations, but that's why I showed up to a film called Women Talking to hear women talk. I wanted that. I wanted the tough conversations. I knew pretty much what the film was about, and that I was disappointed that was not what the film was to the fullest extent. So on one hand, people are giving it shit because they're calling it a film in the barn. It's not a film in the barn, and that's why I'm giving it shit is because I would have much rather preferred it to be a film in a barn. I have no problem with films that that are limited in scope, especially when they actually have something to say. With The Whale, I just with it being sort of limited, I'm like, I just kept feeling like, what is Darren Aronofsky gonna do? Like, I felt like The Whale could have been directed by anybody, not necessarily Darren Aronofsky. It didn't need him at the helm. It felt like with all the choices that Darren makes in his films, I didn't quite pick up on what he brought to the table for a film that takes place basically only in the confines of an apartment. Here, I don't know that Sarah Polley has necessarily established herself with a very specific style, quite like Aronofsky has, so I didn't really have an expectation. So I was looking more at the script and the writing of it, and looking more for her to use this film to establish herself as a director. And I don't know. I think ultimately the sad thing is I don't think I would have nominated her for director because I wouldn't have made the choices, and it's not my favorite script because I wouldn't have written a whole bunch of scenes outside of the barn. It's not that I don't like the film. I think the film is incredible when it's in the barn, when the women are having these conversations and they're shouting at each other and they're going back and forth, and it just flows. It flows so well. And even with Ben Whishaw, his character, who does basically nothing. There's such a huge reason why he's not nominated for an acting award this year. He's like wallpaper in this film. It's so he gets dwarfed by the women. Frances McDormand, by the way, is barely in this. So if you go see things because Frances McDormand is in them, be prepared to to see her stand around a lot, and not a lot of talking. So it's mostly Rooney Mara, Claire Foy, Jessie Buckley, and a bunch of actresses you're likely not familiar with, but you should be. And Sheila McCarthy is probably the standout for me of the actresses I did not know walking into Women Talking. The one that I'm trying to remember her name. Last year, my best supporting actress choice was Catherine Hunter. It was an actress I did not know before she was in Tragedy of Macbeth, and she stood out to me and blew me away. And I feel a little bit of that from Sheila McCarthy, except for the fact it's so hard to pick just one. This is like the impossibility. I want to have a top 10 supporting actress list where I just go, someone from Women Talking. I don't care who, but someone. Because it feels like somebody should be represented, but who do you choose? You either populate your entire list with supporting cast of Women Talking, or you don't. God, it's very frustrating. It speaks so much to the testament of the women and their commitment to these characters, and how much I loved all of them, and how unique each character was. It was kind of a little bit hard to follow because there's so many of them, especially in the beginning, when I didn't quite know who all of them were, and there were a lot of them, and I'm blind, so I don't have the ability to facially recognize. And that's what I alluded to at the beginning. As I said, it's possible I might have enjoyed this film a little bit more if I could see, because there's a thing about facial recognition. It's different than being given audio description where the narrator is tracking by giving you character names, because then we have to really quickly, as a blind person, turn into our superhero mode and be able to immediately match everybody's voice to a character name, so that way when the narration is not able to interject, we're still able to follow that conversation. When you can see, you can just see the people who are on camera speaking, so you can see who just spoke, and you have that sort of visual association, and so it always follows. It does not always follow, and when you have a cast full of actors, because this film has more actresses in it that I did not know than I did know, Because Frances, like I said, Frances McDormand is basically irrelevant. I cannot explain to you how little she does in this film. It's she makes Judd Hirsch's performance in The Fabelmans look like look like Spartacus. Like, it's just if Frances McDormand had been nominated for a supporting actress award from this film, people would have lost their shit. That's how short it is. That's how small her performance is compared to everybody else. It's you know, I mean, God love her for being in the film, but no, she's definitely not. If that's your takeaway, if your takeaway from this film was, yeah, Frances McDormand was great, then it's almost offensive to all the rest of the cast that actually does do things and has characters, and they have emotional moments, and they have these rises and falls, and they have great things to say and great points to make, and they have to take hard stances, because you have to have the character that wants to stay and wants to forgive and is pushing that narrative, right? That's saying, where do we have to go? You know, what else? What can we do? We have nowhere. We don't know where we're going. We don't have a map. We don't even know where we are. That's sort of the realist of saying, like, we're fucked. Basically, we're in this situation, and the best thing we can do is to forgive. And then you have another character that's talking about, like, well, is it really forgiveness if we don't mean it? And is it just forgiving to forgive so that we can stay, or is it even forgiveness at all? Is it even real? And how does God feel about that? You know, if we're not able to actually forgive, but we just say it, is it real? And then you have people who are like, well, we should stay and fight. This is our home. It's the men that should leave. You know, the men are the ones who should leave. Then you have the women that are like, well, some of the men are good. So we should keep some of them and get rid of just the rapists. And but then you have the conversation about, well, the men enable them. I mean, right now they're down there bailing out the rapists. So are there really good men in this community? Then they talk about what do we do about the children? We've got some male children. I guess there's one that's in a wheelchair. So they talk about, you know, what do we do about them, and if we leave, where do we go, and what will we do, where will we live, do we give men the option to leave with us? And but then they'll just build another community elsewhere, and the problem will be the same. It's all of this stuff, and it's actually a really great conversation that's being had back and forth between all of these characters and these actresses, and they're all sharing sort of their personal experiences. I thought Claire Foy did an amazing job. She has like one monologue that just really hit me, but so does Sheila McCarthy. Sheila McCarthy had like one little monologue in this thing that's fantastic and just also hit me. So, you know, those are great. Jessie Buckley, just her character is just kind of consistently great. So in little moments, the way that she always is. And some of the younger girls, there are some younger girls in here that are actually really good for their ages. You know, having to play with these well-known actresses and act opposite them, they do a pretty good job. So I love the acting. I think the acting is phenomenal. I cannot pick out one performance. I just can't. There's just no way to do it. This is exactly why the Ensemble Award exists. I'm disappointed now that I've seen Women Talking to know that SAG didn't give this the Ensemble Award. But, you know, what can you do? So, as far as, you know, is it in my top 10? It's not in my top 10. I'm sorry. There's way too much of this film that takes place outside of the barn. There's this whole like subplot story between Rooney Mara and Ben Whishaw that I didn't need. It detracted so much from the conversations that were being had. I felt like what was happening in that room was so important. And then like I felt like we were going on like coffee break, you know, and like it was like a 15-minute coffee break. We need to go wander around the community for a little while. I'm gonna cool down. I just, and it just kind of like lets the energy out of the film. If I'm being really honest, it just kind of, we're walking around the houses and fields and just doing other things, and I don't know. I know it wants to give you the idea of this is their community and this is what their religion is like and this is how they live and all of that. I think if Sarah Polley wants to be in the top 5, I think she needs to be the director who can show that and also still be in the barn. I think it's entirely possible to create a very compelling film that doesn't go anywhere, that just stays in a barn. I don't think that that's impossible. And I stand up against the people who say that is not a film, that you cannot put a film in a barn, and that's not interesting. So I think that's very interesting. I think that's I think those are the most interesting parts of the film. So I love that women were telling the story, that it was from a female director and a female and that actually this is the same person. It's from Sarah Polley, who's a woman who wrote and directed this film. I think that's great. Its score is fine. I don't know that it's a standout score for me, but it was fine. I did try to listen to it because I know some people had really been like, oh my God, I love the score to Women Talking. I listened to it and I was like, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have been mad if it was nominated. I don't think that I would. It doesn't feel like the thing that 20 years down the road that I want to be like, oh my God, the score from Women Talking. It's just, it's a nice score that I don't think anybody will remember. I think if you put it on 20 years from now and it's just in the background, I don't think anybody's going to be like, is this the score from Women Talking? I just don't think it's one of those scores. It's complimentary, but not to a point where it's memorable. I don't know that we really have much else to talk about because I can't talk about cinematography. I've heard the color grading on this is bizarre, and that's why some people didn't like it. But I don't care. I don't care. We let Zack Snyder make all of his films look like in this weird shade of blue-gray for years, and suddenly a female director is using color grading. It's like, oh, we can't have her do that. Like, whatever. Stop telling Zack Snyder he's amazing, and then go off and be like, Sarah Polley, you can't use color grading. Stop making a film look... whatever. It's stupid. So yeah, I'm mostly positive on this. It's not the best film of the year, which sadly is exactly what I said about She Said and The Woman King and Till. Although Till was for an entirely different reason. It was because I'd seen Women of the Movement, and it felt way too fresh for me. It felt like I just saw the story, and I felt like if I hadn't seen Women of the Movement, I might have had a different approach. Just like here, I'm acknowledging, if I could see, I have a feeling Women Talking would land better because I'd be able to follow each one of the individual performances better. But I wouldn't have left the barn still. So, yeah, the audio description did the absolute best it could. I mean, I was memorizing these names. I IMDb'd the film so I could match. Some of these names are not names. I don't know what else to say that. It's weird to be in a community. I would think a religious community would have a lot of names that were pulled from the Bible. Some of these names are not names, but they're paired with names like Greta. You know, I don't know how we get like Ulma, and then we get Greta. You know, I mean, I could understand that if we were in a different country and then we had sort of maybe those countries' names. But all of these people have American accents, so this is somewhere in America where I have no idea. So, it's Women Talking, so it's time for the man talking to shut up and grade film. I'm going to give Women Talking a B+. Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel bad. I feel so deflated. Um, it's got such an amazing cast. Just like Till, the same grade I gave Till. Danielle Detweiler is phenomenal in that film. But I I think it was such a mistake to spend so much time outside the barn. Um, and I didn't need the subplot between Rooney Mara and Ben Whishaw. Um, I know that there must have been some sort of desire to make August a bigger character, and that's why Ben Whishaw was cast, and that's why we gave him things to do, was to show that a man could be sympathetic in this film. I'm not really sure the film needed that. I think the film should have just done exactly what, and trusted that what its title is strong enough to carry the film, and that Sarah Polley should have trusted her writing abilities, and her directorial abilities to just make it women talking in a barn. And I think that would have been a great fucking movie. So, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And if you are not a subscriber, please do subscribe. I like to talk about films with audio description and just really like from a blind experience and what it's like and how to change it around. Yeah, I also have a website, macthemovieguy.com. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description and where you can watch it. You can go to the adna.org, that's the adna.org, and you can look up Laura Post and see what else she has done narration for. At this point, she should be in like some sort of weird hall of fame where it's just like, congratulations, you've narrated 500 things. I don't know. No idea how many things she's narrated, but it's ridiculous. You can follow me on Instagram or Twitter at MacTheMovieGuy. So I will review something else for you guys and see you on the other side.